Hello, and welcome to another episode of Black Belts and Boardrooms, where the leaders we speak to have mastered their craft and shown how how they achieved what they have today. So, Renard, today is actually kind of special, because you and I are now going back to the Black Belts part of our Black Belts and Boardrooms name. I'm really excited about our guest today, but let me ask you this: how excited are you?
Dude, I'm excited. I told you off the air, we finally getting back to the black belt side of our podcast. And for me and the person we have, I can talk about jujitsu all day long for the most part. So I'm excited. Amir, who do we have today?
Well, our guest is Dr. Megan Jimenez. Now, what's unique about Dr. Megan is that she is not only somebody who has pushed the limits of what physically you can do through multiple martial arts training, and I'll let her tell us about that, but she's also an accomplished fighter as a champion in multiple sports. Dr. Megan Jimenez, welcome.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you could make some time for us. So I want to start by, your roots. We like to learn about the leaders we're speaking with. So however much you want to cover, tell us a little bit about you. You come from an immigrant family, as I know. You are world champion. Not only that, you're an army officer and trained in multiple martial arts. So give us a sense about who is Megan.
Yeah, so I mean, from the start, I've been doing martial arts since I was about 5. Did Kenpo for a while. Most of my younger years earned my black belt there and then went to college. So I did Kenpo for probably 12, 13, 14 years and then went to college, couldn't find a Kenpo academy to train. I went to California, found a boxing club, joined that, loved it, and then decided to go to medical school. When I was in medical school, I found Muay Thai a little bit, trained, and when I was doing Muay Thai, I saw people rolling around in pajamas or back in almost like a Kenpo type gi. I said, "What is that?" And that's when I found jujitsu. I was probably about my early 20s at the time. So yeah, about like 12 years ago when I found that. And then I bought a $40 Fuji gi online and never looked back at the stand-up sports.
It's amazing. So, I love the fact that my friend and co-host Renard and I, we come from contrasting styles. You, on the other hand, are a blend of the two. So Renard being in jujitsu and myself more of the standing arts or striking arts fan. Um, you as an orthopedic surgeon kind of have a very deep understanding of the human anatomy. How does that ever play out in your, practice as a martial artist?
It's tough, man. Sometimes it really stops me or hinders me a bit because I don't want to hurt myself. I don't want to hurt other people. So I think there's a fun fight, Khabib versus Gagey, I believe it was, where Khabib had Gagey in an armbar. And earlier in the press conference, Gagey said, "I will not tap to you," right? So Khabib, he had this armbar and you watch him he could have broken his arm and he switched to a triangle, ended up choking him out. But in the post conference, he said, I wasn't going to break his arm. And I feel that. And that's pretty remarkable because I've seen, I've had my ACL torn for people not stopping and me not tapping in time. And then it could go either way, right? So in competition, people always laugh. They're like, will you break it if you have the opportunity?" And I have never been in that situation really, thankfully. But if I am, I think I'm going to transition because I know too much, right? And then sometimes I play it a little bit safe too and put myself in bad, maybe crappy positions because I don't want to get injured. Or I'll tap pretty quickly too, specifically in training, which I promote for everyone, but not everybody thinks that way. So sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse.
So the more knowledge you have, the easier it is for you to decide what should I do? Like, should I pull back quickly? Should I slow down?
Probably harder to decide
Harder
because
to
it's that fighter instinct that you just want to go, go, go. And I pull back sometimes because I'm like, I know what could happen here. And like when I teach and I have my people or my students go out and train after, I give this huge like brief, like we're not doing these. If you guys catch heel hooks, you release. We're not falling on each other's knees. If you're going to stand up, please be extra careful. It's this whole brief, and everybody probably start rolling their eyes. Like she does this every time, but I don't want people getting injured on my watch.
Yeah, I understand that completely. One of the things that my instructor used to always say that the safest place in a dojo is around black belts. What's your thought on that perspective?
Yeah, I think all the years of knowledge, it's typically safer to go with the black belts. I say no a lot now to younger white belt, especially big guys. They'll be like, "Hey, coach, can you roll?" I'm like, "Nope, not yet." And it's pretty standard now too. It's like once I say yes to you to roll, you've kind of made it in safety wise and technical abilities. I trust you.
Mm. So, what made you decide that orthopedic surgery and martial arts, like that's the two things you want to chase every day in your life? I mean, that's a pretty rare thing.
Yeah, there's a bunch of us, like orthopedic surgeon black belts that I've started to meet more, especially with social media. I thought it was a very small group, but as I've started building kind of my brand and reaching out to people, now I have really good friends that are black belts that are orthopedic surgeons as well. And it's pretty funny to see because some don't care, they just go full send, and then others, like myself, I got a buddy Lucius who's a hand surgeon and he's always protecting his hands, and we're a little bit more methodical sometimes, but it's a whole gamut of things. And I think just the challenge of both. Like you're never a full master at either, right? Even orthopedics, keep learning. I'm always studying. Right after we do this podcast, I'm going to be starting to prepare for my cases this week. It's Sunday, and that's usually when I am studying, reading, trying to better myself. You never know it all. Same in jujitsu, right? You open Instagram or you go roll with someone and they hit you with a new submission. What the hell was that? But that's the beauty of it, right? If when there's something that's plateaued and you've learned everything, that's not really exciting to me anymore. And I think orthopedics and jujitsu share that in common. It's always challenges.
I like that. I like that. I'm kind of curious now. We're talking about you being an orthopedic surgeon. I'm sure someone had to call you maybe the bone collector at some point, just of all the knowledge that you know. So I'm a little curious if from learning so much of jujitsu and doing that, what got you to all of a sudden now you're a world champion? Was that something you always thought like, "Hey, I get into jujitsu, eventually I wanna be a world champion," or was it a progression you said, "Hey, I'm gonna go after this?"
No, it's funny. The competition thing, it didn't really intrigue me much when I started. I competed a bunch in karate and then I boxed amateur for a little bit in college. Well, boxing, I was kind of just tired of getting my bell rung. And so I said, the brain is pretty important, and then moved to jujitsu, where now the joints are in danger. So it's a whole other thing. But the joints, I know how to rehab and I know how to help that a little bit better than the brain. Right. So going into jujitsu was really just fun and community when I started. I did a competition early on, I did like a Naga competition when I was a white belt, and I was a resident at the time, training to be an orthopedic surgeon. So you're working crazy hours. You don't really have much free time. And so I was trying to train, and then I'd be gone for a couple months from the gym on trauma rotation. And then I'd come back. So I was like, let me try this competition thing. Had fun, but it's a lot of stress, right? A lot of anxiety. And people don't love that. But I equate that to life. Oh, you never know what's going to pop up. You're going to have stressors, and then how do you deal with that? And so competition to me is just kind of like stressors in life. But I can plan for it a little bit more and prepare myself. So when things go wrong or how I didn't expect in life, a little bit better control mentally. Um, I didn't compete for about 7 years before I went to Worlds. So I was a resident, then I was a fellow, then I got my first job at Emory in Georgia, and I found a great gym down in Columbus. And I was driving like an hour to go train every day. Um, Not every day, but most days, sometimes twice a day, I'd drive, and it was worth it. Um, and I said, I was in a relationship at the time, had a pretty tough breakup, got through that, and then I said, I am going to compete again. And so I think it was kind of like a transfer of energy from this relationship I was in, this terrible breakup, to just, I'm putting this energy into a competition. And it was Worlds. And I had a bunch of friends at the gym going, and I was like, shit, like I'm going to go compete in Worlds. This is my first competition in 7 years. Now I'm a purple belt. I was a white belt the last time. I said, let's do it. And so I trained, and it was Master Worlds, which is super, super fun event. It's huge. It's in Vegas every year. And it was 2021. I think it was, yeah, right after COVID. Yeah, right after COVID. It was like in November that year because it had been pushed back from COVID and everything. And yeah, it was a great experience. I had a bunch of my friends, my aunt and uncle surprised me, and it was a great time. I had like no expectation to win or anything. I was the underdog. Nobody knew my name, or I hadn't competed in 7 years. And so I kind of came in 15th seed out of 15 women and just had a blast. And it was such a good experience. And now I just compete a couple times a year, it may be, and it's for fun, right? 2 weeks ago, I competed at my gym, and it was a really great organization called Battle Grappling that came to my gym. So I was 5 minutes away, and it was such an awesome event with everybody there. And now it's mostly just for the kids, for my students. I do it to prove to myself I can still do it. And getting in the routine of competition is so awesome. Like I'm so structured. There's no alcohol. Sleep is important. Workouts are important, and it's a focus, right? There's a goal, and I think my training gets better because of that. And then my opponents challenge me to get better afterwards. So that's my reasons for competing and showing the kids. I like to coach the kids and the adults now in competition, showing them that regardless if you win or lose, you know, you have to have a good attitude and be respectful of your opponents because some of these kids will go nuts after win or lose. And so I think it's a really good experience in that way.
No, no, I agree that, and you hit on a point, and I always tell people it's in a sense it's a little harder to teach kids than it is adults.
Mm.
Adults are a lot easier to teach. So I would love your opinion on how teaching kids actually does make you better at your craft teaching kids.
Yeah, teaching kids is hard. I think I lack a little bit of patience sometimes. And like my fiance, he's actually one of the kid coaches at my gym, and then I teach the advanced adults afterwards. Sometimes I'll cover, and it's a completely different beast how you teach. It has to be way more simple. I'm very detail oriented. It's the surgeon in me too. And sometimes the adults really like those details. They ask for those details, whereas the kids, you'll lose them if it's more than like a 30-second instruction. Also, gaining the respect of the kids, kind of, you can't really be too buddy buddy because then they walk all over you, right? And then they're running on the walls and all over the place. So you learn a lot. You learn a lot. You have to really simplify things. Sometimes I'll teach something and then I'll see them doing completely the opposite. I'm like, okay, I wasn't teaching that appropriately, or I lost them. But coaching kids in competition is really cool because their emotions shine through. I feel like when adults compete, we have all those emotions, but they're kind of tucked in, and the kids just show them all. So it's a whirlwind when we coach the kids. Yeah, it's pretty great to see them win, and then when they lose, trying to support them and help them realize that's part of the process.
Agree. I agree. I've gotten a chance to teach kids as well, and I remember my very first time teaching kids, and I didn't know what to expect, and I had that for I was like, man, this is actually very hard to teach kids. Kids, they they have short attention spans. If you're not locked in with them, they will go do something else while you're in the middle of teaching. And understand it. I'll be honest. It helped me become a better martial artist teaching kids because as all three of us know, training like you just do the move. You don't have to explain. You just do it. It just becomes natural. And then having to break it down on how to do it, and you'd be like, "Damn, I got to really be able to relay this back to a kid, relay this back to an adult, and it becomes like you get better at your craft because you're breaking it down so much. But I do remember I was like, "Yeah, can you show me how to do that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, do this." They was like, "Well, can you break it down?" I was like, "Oh, I just do this. I don't know how to break it down yet." So it gets you a chance to become a better practitioner. So, you became a world champion. I know you just said your fiance also trains. How is that having a fiance who also trains jujitsu as well? How is that? Are y'all, rolling on the mats on a regular? Or are we rolling at home when we get into an argument? How is that?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. When I compete, or when either of us compete, the other is just so supportive. When I competed a couple weeks ago, leading up to it, he's like, "All right, I know you have to get your 2 workouts in today, but I'm have a full OR schedule, so maybe in between surgeries, I'm trying to go get a run or do some band work, whatever I can, and then at night say, "Hey, I didn't get my second workout in today, and I have a very strict schedule." He helps plan my scheduling too for like lifting, and he's really good cook, so he helps with me with nutrition, and then he is a wrestler, so he helps me a lot with my stand-up game and warming up the day of, and it's really tremendous, the support. He'll be like, "Hey, I'll go home from work today and take care of the dog so you can go get your second workout." And so that's awesome. And then the day of the competition, whatever I need. I woke up and had to be a certain weight, and he's like, "All right, well, you can only have these little 2 pathetic eggs and, like, 4 grapes, and so you gotta weigh in, whatever." And it's been awesome. Before competition, he'll warm up with me, and we'll just hit things constantly, and then I go compete, and I hit those same things that we just warmed up. So it's really just awesome. He's a purple belt. We just gave him his purple belt, like, 2 or 3 months ago, which was awesome, but he's 200 pounds, right? I'm 120 pounds. So that's a pretty funny dynamic as well. Like, we'll stand up and try to wrestle, and then immediately one good collar tie, and I just sit my butt on the ground. I'm like, "Yeah, we're good. We're good here." Right? So it's a fun dynamic, and it's cool because we can talk the language, and we're both very into the details of it, and we'll just sit there watching instructionals and trying to learn from each other,
Mhm.
and it's really awesome.
I like it.
So, Megan, I want to pick on something, and I am very curious because you said something about adults. You said adults kind of bottle it in, kids kind of put that out there, and I've had the same experience in the dojo. You know, with the kids, you can't get into details. Adults love the details. They just want to eat up whatever you give them. Now,
Sometimes,
some
sometimes. We have our Neanderthals. We call the 6 a.m. guys the Neanderthals that are like, "Just give me less, and we wanna beat each other up before work." Like,
yeah,
different, right? It just depends, and that's the hard part about class. Some people, because you have white belt, I have kids in my class, teenagers, like kids all the way to black belts that are in their 50s. So it's very hard to teach that huge array, right, with the details. And so sometimes I go into details in certain corners, or some people want them and other people I see falling asleep on the wall if I get too much detail. So it's a challenging thing.
you're right. I 100% agree. But the item I want to pick on is your mindset because when you were competing, if I'm not mistaken, you had just come back from an injury, an ACL injury. And that I even know is very painful. And that's one of the things we want to make sure we never break in Taekwondo. So we do exercises specific for protecting our ACLs. But for you specifically, from a mindset perspective, did you have a coach that helped you do that? You know, get your mindset back into the game, or did you just kind of coach yourself into that mindset? Because I think that's one of the struggles we all have, both as leaders and athletes.
No, that's the hardest part. When my athletes, specifically ACLs, because they're very difficult to get back from, it takes a year, really, to get fully back. Um, I tell them 90% of this is going to be mental and 10% is going to be physical. That percentage I made up. And I don't think it's too far off because when people tear their ACLs, they're shut down, right? You have that surgery and you can barely do a straight leg raise, like lift your leg straight off the table. So you went from doing jujitsu at a very high level or whatever sport, playing football, running around like a lunatic, cutting, pivoting, squatting, however much, to barely being able to lift your leg off a table with no weight and not even able to walk. So it's a big mind shift. Just literally, you go to sleep under anesthesia and you wake up and this is your new normal for a little bit. And then every week is like a little bit more, but your goals change. So I tell my athletes, your goal right now isn't to go run a 6-minute mile. It's to walk and get full extension of your knee. So changing the goal, there's still a goal because we need goals, but it's different. It's very different. And at that 3-month mark, they start to feel so good. And they start running like 3 to 4 or 5 months. And then they're starting to feel better, but you still can't return to sport, right? 6 months. And then at that 9-month mark is the earliest I let people return to like full cutting, pivoting sports. That's a long time. And your knee's starting to feel better, but you can't go. And so I think that's a very difficult thing is to limit and changing the mind of like what you can't do to what you can do is huge. Because if you keep saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, you're going to destroy yourself and you're just going to sit and play video games and gain 50 pounds, which I've seen. Or you say, I can teach jujitsu. I can go with a trusted training partner and drill arm bars, right? And that's the big mindset shift I try to do with my athletes.
So in your particular case, how much of the uh, community support helped you rebuild that mindset versus your own kind of constant reminders every day?
Both are huge. Both were huge. So after my ACL surgery, you asked about coaches. Yep, I did hire a sports psychologist, which I think insurances should cover. I wish they did, but sadly they don't. So I hired a sports psychologist a couple times. I also have a life coach that I've had for about 5 years now, and he's been tremendous in everything. So they both helped me a lot. And honestly, my physical therapists are more than just doing the PT. They had to deal with my mind every time coming in, of being like, I have a setback. I did too much. I did this and I hurt. So the PTs have to do a lot more than just do your physical rehab. So I became very close with my PTAs, and my life coach was huge. So I couldn't have done it alone. And then I tore my ACL from a heel hook in an outside ashi position, heel hook, ripped it, didn't tap in time, didn't even really notice. Afterwards, I was a little swollen. And I was like, oh, that was the best. Competing was so fun. I can't wait for the next one. And then I watched the video and saw my knee pop. And crap, that's an ACL tear, right? And I think that happens a lot to jiu-jitsu athletes, and they just move along. But I know too much. And I saw that pop of my knee, got an MRI, saw the tear, and decided to get surgery, which isn't always the answer either. But just all of that, the mental part of all of that was so much more taxing, so much more taxing. And then when I started getting back to the mats, I was just putting myself in that outside ashi position with trusted partners, and I was like, give me 10%, because I would get in that position, my heart rate would spike, I would get sweaty because I would just watch that video so many times, relived it so many times, so I had to get out of that. And that took months. That really took months. I don't think I competed after my ACL tear for about a year and a half.
Wow. Wow. Renard and I have this conversation about coaching and the value of coaching, and I'm so glad you mentioned it and insurance covering it. There's a lot of things that I think insurance should do or the healthcare system should do, but we won't get into that right now. I'm sure you're probably more uh, well equipped to make those complaints than maybe Renard and I as recipients of services. But coaching, Renard and I both have coaches, and that's how he and I met. Um, if you were to just kind of look at your average person who doesn't really know about coaching, doesn't really have access to coaching, maybe on a day-to-day basis, what are some of the ways in which you would maybe help them take action or use whatever tools are around them, if not coaching?
That is tough. That's a really tough question because people ask me that a lot. I think that there's tools to help in moments. I have a visualization app that my life coach actually sent to me, and it's a 7-minute visualization where you see yourself before a big event, right? So before a big surgery, I use it. Before competition, I use it. Anything big, and it puts you kind of above, on a timeline above where you are competing or doing whatever. Then it's like, okay, go 10 minutes past that. What's the best thing that could have happened? What are people saying to you? What are you saying to yourself? And it puts you in that mindset. But you can't just kind of go to those steps. My life coach talks a lot about taking action, but taking action doesn't come first. Like first, there's all the baggage that you have, that you hold, and some of it's subconscious. You don't even know. So I do a lot of work with my life coach, releasing that stuff, which I don't think you can just do yourself. Maybe there are ways to do it, but I've found a good way with my life coach that he walks me through things. If I'm having a troubling situation, we go back in the past, we dig things up through a whole method that he utilizes. And it's hours of work, it's a lot. Then I go and write like a compelling future, kind of put myself out years, all the things that I could accomplish that I want to do. And then we take action. So, we go a lot to taking action, but you have to release all this baggage and load, or you're just going to be taking action every day trying to go like up a big hill. And so I think doing those things, great. Like I've got friends with competitions, give them a visualization app, some meditations and things, journaling, great. But if you haven't released the bad stuff, it's going to always weigh on you. And you're just going to be taking action every day trying to get better. And I'm not sure that there's going to be as much of improvement as you could have.
So being in the technology field, I've met enough technologists who are, and I'm probably guilty of this at some level too, which is, hey, you can build an app for that. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that you don't need just an app. You actually need somebody else who externally can help guide you.
Personally, that's how I feel. I'm sure that there's other ways to do it, right? There's other ways to do things. Maybe there are apps. And my life coach, Ray, he talks about AI taking over a lot of what he does. But I still think that there is a role for him, and that human connection that I'm not sure can be taken over by AI completely. Maybe it could, probably could. But in my eyes, he is just an amazing human and has helped me through so much.
I would not subscribe. I'm not in that camp. Not yet, at least.
Oh, I'm sure
Same.
it's coming. I'm sure it's gonna come. I'm sure it's coming, and I'm sure a lot of people have other ways. This is just my way, and it's worked for me.
Mm. Yeah, you got to keep that what we say, the human in the loop at some point. When you were talking about rehabbing from your ACL, I think about when I was going through rehab for my hip surgery. My physical therapist was the one who motivated me, and I just kept going. I didn't. It was painful. I knew it was going to be painful. It's like I had the mindset, and he helped me with the mindset. Say, hey, it's going to hurt. This is going to be painful rehabbing. You just got to continue to move through it, and then you start seeing like, oh, okay, I feel a little better. Okay, I know I'm tired as hell, but I feel better. And the same thing when I got on the mat, I was in the same place. I was nervous my first day back on the mats. I was like, is my hip gonna pop out if I do this move? I was like, I hear all the terrible things about hip replacement and what can happen. So it's the mindset and also just getting back to the work. And once you just start doing it, it just you're back to the way you normally are. So I wanna go back. You talk about, now that you're a doctor, you're an orthopedic surgeon, what made you go into, just becoming deciding that? Did you wanna do anything else before saying, "Hey, I wanna go into the medical profession"?
I wanted to be a vet for a long time. Actually, you guys might have just seen my dog popped
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the screen here for a quick lick. Um, I wanted to be a vet for a while, and then I had an allergy to cats growing up. So, well, that might not be a great idea. And I always was fascinated by surgery. When I was in high school, freshman year, during lunch, my anatomy teacher played a knee replacement video. She's like, "All right, we're gonna do a knee replacement video for anybody that wants to watch." I was the only one in the room. And this is pretty bad. I was sitting there like eating a steak, I think. And I'm watching this video. I'm watching them hammer away and saw and bone chips, and I'm just eating like it's a movie. I said, this is pretty cool. And I was like, I want to do that. And so went to college, was pre med, got into medical school. And then medical school, I wanted to be a surgeon. But then I started seeing how much surgeons work. So, man, I like my other stuff. I love my family. I love jujitsu. I love doing other things, working out. I don't know if that's for me. So I tried to do like non-op sports medicine, shadowed family medicine doctors, ER doctors, and I was covering on a sideline for a football game, and this kid went down, and we run out. I'm with the non-operative sports guy, and he's like, "Oh, I think he's got an ACL tear." I was like, "Ooh, what are we going to do about it?" And he goes, "Oh, we're going to send him to my ortho colleague." And I said, "That's who I want to be." I was like, I didn't want to just diagnose it and send it. I wanted to be the person to get this athlete, or be one of the people to help get this athlete back. And so then I started shadowing orthopedic residents on weekends and going in and meeting people, and I loved it. I fell in love with the operating room. Just we're essentially using carpentry, right, on the human body. But one of my mentors said, "You're a gardener first." And that always really hit me because, yes, you can do a perfect job on the bones, plates, screws, whatever. But if you don't respect the soft tissues and be the gardener first, then it's not going to heal. And you have to be respectful of all of that first. And so I kind of love that like gardener carpenter mindset. And yeah, I just had to do surgery. I love it. I love using my hands. It's like jujitsu, right? It's very technical. Um, there's a lot of risks, and that's kind of a cool part of it.
No, no, I respect that. Do you feel like since you done all these martial arts, you're black belt in multiple martial arts, do you feel like you can speak to someone who is having an injury a lot better because you understand jujitsu, et cetera? Because it took me a while to find the right ortho doc because every time I said jujitsu, they didn't understand what it was and they couldn't really tell me if I could get back to the mat. So that's another reason it took me so long. But you having that background, do you feel like it helps you connect a lot better with people who have those type of injuries?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can just speak the language, right? Even wrestlers, I have them come into my office, or jujitsu guys come into my office, and they're like, "Oh, I was in 50-50. They swept me. Like I went into outside ashi," and they start saying all these terms, right? Or I got heel hooked, and I'm like, "Okay, I got it." But if you go into a doctor's office who might not know that lingo, they might have a little bit of a tougher time computing what exactly happened. They're going to say, "Okay, your knee hurts." And so I think mechanism is a lot better that way. Just like if I were to treat a softball player, like maybe I don't know, or a gymnast, I don't know all their lingo. Be like, "Hey, can you show me the video of it happening, or a video of somebody else doing that move, that somersault, whatever it is, because I don't understand. So I think it just gives an extra edge when you see somebody who knows what sport you're in, regardless of sport. I think it's super helpful. Or somebody that at least is willing to understand. We actually started Smith and Nephew is a company I use for some of my implants, and they joined forces with the UFC, like sponsorships and things. So we've done 2 conferences now, and I'm on the faculty, and we all go and we educate. And most people that are on the faculty treat combat athletes, or they're involved with it. There's a bunch of black belt orthopedic surgeons on the faculty, and we just share knowledge about these athletes. And it's such a well done course. And there's a lot of orthopedic surgeons now coming to this course that have no idea, except for the UFC that they watch, what's going on, and they're trying to learn more about these athletes because it's so popular now. Like everyone trains. That's my theory. You know, you talk to whoever, and you're like, "Oh yeah, my cousin trains, my like daughter trains," and people are much more aware of jujitsu now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest, it made me more comfortable on what was gonna happen after when I was able to talk to my orthodox. He's like, "Yeah, yeah." He's like, "I understand." He said, "You're gonna be able to train, etcetera." I was like, "Okay, now I'm confident I go into this surgery, this won't ever be the last time I step on the mats," and that was my worry. I remember I told, my black belt, I was like, "Look, if he tells me I can't train anymore, I might as well just deal with what I got and just keep training until it becomes 0%," because I was like, what I told Amir offline, like, what jujitsu has given me, I didn't wanna give that up. You know, jujitsu has given me a lot, and I know from any martial arts anyone can understand. I'm curious from your angle, Megan, what has jujitsu given you as a person who has gone through your black belt now, you teach, etcetera? I'm curious to know what it has it done for you?
Honestly, the community is the biggest thing, right? I've had several injuries. I've had a couple surgeries from jujitsu, and every time I'm like, "Damn, should I be doing this?" I'm an orthopedic surgeon too. Like hand injuries, especially finger injuries. It's like this is my livelihood, and this is what I enjoy doing. And I've thought maybe I need to stop jujitsu, and that computes for like 2 seconds in my brain, and then I'm on to the next thing. That's ridiculous. And it's such a pull to the community. I was telling you guys before we started the podcast, yesterday, we all went up to Seattle. A couple of us taught. You know, one of my buddies said, "Hey, could you teach something? We're going to do a seminar because one of our guys at the gym, his wife has stage 4 breast cancer, and we're trying to raise money." And I was like, "Say less. I'll be there." Right. And so for 6 of us, 6 black belts went and taught, and it was like hours of seminar, and we raised $15,000, and that was incredible. And that's the community that keeps bringing me back, right? And of course, there's the jujitsu itself. There's the workout. That's great. But the friends that I've made um, all over the world, anywhere I go on a vacation, conference, I'd pack my mouth guard, I pack a belt, and I pack finger tape and no-gi stuff, right? I could borrow a gi, whatever. And I will find a place and I will train. And then those people are like my best friends, and we will see each other at tournaments. We visit each other. I remember meeting a friend in Austin, and I ended up staying on her futon like the next year I was visiting for something unrelated. And so that's what keeps me going back to jujitsu.
I'm the same way. I don't know how many friends I've gotten because of jujitsu, and I always tell everybody, I said that the great thing about jujitsu is I don't find out what people do outside of work until way later on, and come to find out we're in the same industry, etc. Like we're training for months and we know each other, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're in tech?" Like, "Yeah, I'm in tech too." Like, "Oh, okay, now we know same thing." Like with orthopedic, you just don't know. The whole thing is about we got better on the mats together, and then you find out all these other things about people. So I'm the same way. Jiu-jitsu has given me so much. I'll be honest, I don't cry that often, but when I talk about how much jiu-jitsu has given me, I do shed some tears because it's given me more confidence. I was a person who was an introvert. That changed because of jiu-jitsu, meeting so many new friends, etc. Jiu-jitsu has given me more than just the martial art itself.
And how many um, sports or organizations can say that somebody, like, you have a 60-year-old motorcycle rider covered in tats with a 13-year-old kid who wrestles, and they're friends. I mean, like, maybe not friends outside, but they're acquaintances and rolling together, right? Some of my favorite training partners are literally teenagers because they're my size. And they are friends now, right? And I hope they look up to me. I look up to them because they're these teenagers that can roll with me, almost 40, controlled, not hurt me, but give me a run for my money. And that is awesome. And I'm constantly complimenting them. So, like, where else doesn't matter your political, religious, nothing. None of that matters because you're all on there for the same purpose. And like, where else would you be friends with people like that outside of jiu-jitsu? It's very rare. Very rare.
I agree. I agree. Now the other side of everything of you've been doing, you have your own podcast as well, the Dr. Jiu-Jitsu Show. What made you start your podcast and would love for you to tell our audience just all about what you do on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. So I started that brand because a couple years, well, 2021, when I went through that relationship and then went and competed in Worlds. After Worlds, everybody was like, "What the hell did you do in those 2 months from like breakup to competing and winning?" And I would tell people the story, and they're like, "You got to write a book." It's like I don't have time for that. Like I got plenty on my plate. I don't have time for that shit. No, you got to write a book. So it kept kind of coming in to the picture. And I said, all right, I'll start this process. And I'm still working on it. We're editing now. I just hired a publisher actually. And so that book kind of sparked or birthed Dr. Jiu Jitsu. And I said, all right, this is going to be really cool. Let me start this brand where I can educate athletes because I was seeing so many Jiu Jitsu athletes just kind of have injuries or do things that these guys don't even know what they're doing or have ACL tears. And they're like, yeah, it was just a normal pop. It's fine. And their knee's unstable and they're going years like this. It's like, I just want to be able to educate these guys and girls about what's going on. So my purpose was really just to start this brand to help jujitsu athletes know more, right? Because I have both, I have kind of an expertise in both, and I can combine that knowledge to help share. And so that's where it all birthed from. I'm in the military now and I'm an orthopedic surgeon, but I don't think I'm going to do it forever. And so I'd love to open a gym someday, maybe even just treat combat athletes specifically. So that brand, I think, will kind of lead me into that path.
I like it. I like it. I'm the same way. I tell everybody my retirement is to open my own gym and teach. I tell people that all the time. So I watched the podcast myself. I think I told you that it's a great podcast. It was something I would say that wasn't there. 'Cause any time before I found my orthopedic surgeon, I used to ask people, I was like, "Someone had to come back from these injuries to train. Who can I go to have a conversation?" But it also helped me find other people who went through the same thing out in just a jujitsu community. I made, like, 5 to 10 friends who went through hip surgery and still train. I was like, "Oh," I knew they had to be someone out there. So I love your podcast. It speaks to me definitely since you're an orthopedic surgeon and you do jujitsu, and I went through surgeries as well. So I think you have a great podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have a newsletter as well that goes with that podcast, isn't it? Train smarter and recover better?
Yeah, so the it's just Dr. Jiu-Jitsu newsletter. We're keeping Dr. Jiu-Jitsu on everything, and I have a whole team that helps me with all this stuff because I definitely couldn't do it by myself. Like the editing, not my niche. So when the podcasts come out looking nice, wasn't me. Friends of mine that do a really, really great job. But the newsletter is every Monday, and it's more just people will ask me questions randomly, like on not randomly, but on LinkedIn. I'll get messages at the gym, text message all the time, Instagram messages about people's specific things, and I'm like, well, I can't give you specifics of your injury, right? I haven't seen I wasn't in your surgery. I don't know your imaging. I don't know anything about you. You just told me you had an ACL tear, right? That's one piece of a huge puzzle, and every ACL tear is a little different. It could be treated differently. There's so many variables, and so these questions I've tried to provide broader explanations and my opinions along with literature of questions people ask me. Like the big one now is BPC 157. Well, it's been big for years, and I kind of mentioned it in a newsletter, but people keep asking me, and I said, all right, I'll do a whole newsletter on it. So, like that's on my docket for today too. And it's just doing as much research as I can. I'm no expert in peptides, for example, but I can at least give my expertise in how I evaluate research and opinions. And I can give my best advice through a newsletter rather than specific individuals. And I think sometime I've considered doing consultations on over Zoom, like having people send me their images, their whatever, and trying to help them, especially with recovery, like return to sport. People always ask, but I've got buddies that are black belts and PTs that I refer people too all the time. I'm like, this is the person you're going to go to get your recovery back, because most PTs don't know what you're trying to do. And if you tell a jiu-jitsu athlete at 6 months, oh yeah, you can go like get on the mats, guess what that means? Sending it, right? I'm going to go compete next month. And so I think these very specific PTs that know the sport can say, all right, you had this injury, you're going to play guard now, but only with controlled partners, and you're only doing very specific things. You're not going live. So I think giving those limits are very important. And my newsletter hopefully can give a little broad advice and then send people to the right resources.
So what about those who are non-athletes? Is there a recovery advice that you give them that really is beneficial?
Like a non-athlete tearing their ACL, for example.
Yeah. I mean,
So it's going to be very different. It's going to be very different. Also, if somebody that's not an athlete, or even like a straight sport, right? Triathletes, people that run, people like swim, things that are more linear, probably don't need an ACL, right? If you're like a 40, 50-year-old triathlete and I've had this before. I had a buddy that was a triathlete in his 30s, popped his ACL because he played pickup basketball one weekend for fun. He didn't have surgery. He was actually set to have surgery. And the day before, he was like, I don't need my ACL to run. He's like, I don't have to play basketball. Great. But it's still a recovery, right? And he's an athlete. So he still took 3 to 6 months. You got to do the PT still, right? That's where people get it wrong. Non-op doesn't mean nothing. Just because you're not getting your ACL treated doesn't mean you can just go back to the mat the next day, because you're going to be unstable, and then you might turn this into a surgical knee. You have to do the right things and get back slowly with PTs who know what they're talking about. Non-athletes, you still have to do the PT, but you're not trying to get back to cutting, pivoting, right? You're trying to get back to taking care of your kids. You're trying to get back to maybe getting on the bike, going for walks with your dog, because you should still be active. But it's a very different level of activity, right? So maybe they don't have to get up to that crazy level of their knee being stable. Their knee might just be a little bit more stable because they're not putting it through the ringer like some of us are.
that's amazing. So I want to talk a little bit more about your book. Who is the audience for your book? Because it sounds like your audience is primarily an athlete. Me, as a non-jiu-jitsu person, would I go and read your book? Am I your right audience?
So, I mean, you are an athlete. You do taekwondo. We talked about you being a black belt. My book is split into 2 sections. There's a mindset section, kind of that baggage stuff I worked on with my life coach, visualizations, meditations, all these things, right? The getting over baggage, all the way through taking action, right? So that's the first piece. Then the second half is the physical, what I did to go compete in worlds. Things like morning routine, night routine, strength and conditioning, right? Cross training, not just doing jujitsu. And so I have all these other things, and it's really just how to live a good life, a healthy life, but specifically for people who are goal oriented, who are athletes. And it doesn't have to be world champion 18-year-old, right? That's not the only point. But what about just a 50-year-old jujitsu guy that wants to go compete in masters tournaments? It still works, right? I think the book is pretty broad, but yes, my audience is mostly combat type athletes um, with difficulties, and how I got through that difficult time and then went to worlds.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I have folks who come to me from time to time asking for mentorship. And one of the things I always try and squeeze in early on in the conversation is you have to know yourself. You must know yourself. And this is how you get better at whatever goal you're trying to achieve. Just talking to you and learning from you, I get the sense that you know yourself quite well, too well, in fact, because you know where the boundaries are, you know what you can and can't do, and you articulate it quite well. So as I use that as a grounding for my question, knowing yourself, what are some of the mindset practices that you have always found beneficial?
I think meditation has been huge. The meditation and visualization I talk about. Visualizations I use mostly when I have challenges coming up that I want to think about best possible outcome, or even other outcomes, right? If I'm going to go compete, if I'm in a submission, tapping, right? Maybe the best possible outcome isn't me winning, but it's me training on Monday again. And that took a long time to learn, me tearing my ACL in competition to figure that out, that maybe the best possible solution isn't just winning, right? And so visualizations have been huge, but meditation, morning, night, whatever, not every day. Sometimes I skip it. run out of time, whatever. But I find that the days that I do find that 10 minutes just to get a little meditation in, um, the thoughts, they keep coming in. And that's kind of just part of being a human. People always ask, I can't meditate. I have too many thoughts. And I was like, well, that's why you meditate, right? Because the thoughts are going to come. And it's kind of that letting the thought go by like a river. It's like, okay, that thought came in and then watch it kind of go away and what happens to it. And then the next thought comes in. And it's that understanding of the thoughts, because before I started meditating, which was before 2021, when I met my life coach is when I started that practice, I'd be driving to work and there'd be 500 thoughts that come through my mind, if not more. It would just go through and I wouldn't even realize it was happening. And I get to work so stressed already. It's like, how am I already stressed? I didn't do anything. And just that realization, now I'm driving and the thoughts come in. It's like, right? Meditation is not just that 10 minutes. It's all day. Um, yeah. So just realizing that those thoughts are coming in and letting them pass versus not knowing that they're happening. And then you have all these conversations between your ears all day and you're exhausted.
I really appreciate you saying that because as somebody who wakes up early in the morning, I find that to be part of my meditation routine and helping me build that rhythm in the morning and that awareness to your point. Yes, we all have those thoughts. And yes, they will stress you out, even as simple as driving to work. So thank you so much for calling that out. Um, you know, one more question on the mindset piece of it. Is there a philosophy around mindset that you subscribe to? Because, for example, as I read all these different books on mindset, Carol Dweck or Stoicism, do you have a personal favorite so that other people can kind of use that as a starting point for their own journey?
Ooh, good question. I have just started diving into Stoicism a bit with my life coach, but it's funny because he sent me a thing on Stoicism, a podcast, and it was an hour and a half long, and I could not focus. I was like, Ray, this is so boring. And he's like, well, use that as practice for listening to what's happening in your mind and watching, and then use it as training to focus. And I was like, I hate it when you're right, kind of thing, because I 10 minutes in, I was like, I'm not even focused on this. This is too boring. And so now it's a challenge to try and get through these more monotone type things. And Stoicism is very much like that. So I'm just kind of getting into that and I want to see how I feel. I will listen to things all over the board, even if I don't agree with it. I'm like, let me see this thing I don't agree with and see how it could potentially play a role, right? Instead of just saying, that's not what I agree with and putting it out of the picture. But Sam Harris has a really good app. It's called Waking Up. And I love it. It's a meditation app, but he has so many podcasts and so many different views on there. So I don't know that I subscribe to like one view. I really just try and bring it all in and see what serves me and where I connect.
We're coming up on time here, Megan. So I want to be respectful of your day as well. Um, so Renard, how do you feel about a lightning round with Dr. Megan over here?
Yeah, let's do a quick lightning round with her. I like it. I like it. I'll start off with this one. Megan, of course, I'm gonna start with jujitsu, gi or no gi.
Nogi.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Are we doing lightning, or should I explain myself here?
You know what? I'm kind of curious why no gi. That's a normal question in jujitsu. Which one do you like? I'm
It
curious
is.
why no gi.
So more recently with gi, I feel like I've gotten more injured. Finger injuries with the grips. Like I tape my hands so much. And then when I'm gripping, I had a recent like volar plate injury, so hyperextended my finger, and it still hurts. It's been 2 months. But with the gi, when I grip, I have to get this tighter fist, and then people are just ripping grips off like their life depends on it. So my hands are so important to me, and I think with time I've kind of been way more careful. Also, my neck. I have some neck injuries, some chronic stuff, and if somebody gets grips on me or stacks my legs over my head with the grips, I can't get out of it as easily. And so I notice that if I go with somebody that maybe is a little bit too aggressive or bigger, and then I get stacked, even somebody my size can really stack me on my neck. So neck and finger wise. But besides that part, I like the movement of nogi. I like the wrestling transitions. I like being a little bit more slippery and just moving more. I feel like it's so much more movement. My cardio goes through the roof. And there's more submission options, in my opinion. I guess they're different submission options is a better way of putting it. In the gi, you can use the gi to choke, which I love. That's super fun. But in no gi, you have leg locks. I think also when there's a lot more that's legal, probably more dangerous on the knees, like potentially. I don't know that there's a study that's been done no gi to gi, which actually I should do because we've been really into epidemiological studies recently for IBJJF tournaments. But no gi versus gi, like the injury patterns are different. So it's kind of, people always say no gi is more dangerous. I don't know. I think it depends on your training partners. I think it depends on what you're doing and what you're allowing in your gym. A lot of gyms have illegal moves that you can't do to try and protect people. That's a whole different story. But once I tore my ACL in a no-gi competition, that was my first one in a long time, tore my ACL, and I got so much more into the weeds on it because I was like, how do I not let that happen again? And I studied the shit out of that position and then got really into leg locks. So I love no-gi. I think it's more fun. I think it's more movement-based. And
Well, I don't have a point of reference at all.
I'm sure
But
Renard does.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
yeah, yeah. We were talking about off the air. Which one do I love? Of course, I love both of them. I love no gi. Gi for me is always home because, of course, that's where I started. So for me, it's always home. And I do understand what you mean. The grips, etc. If I show my hands don't look like they used to look when I was a white belt. They're totally different now. So I definitely 100% get that. I love no gi as well, but I always say gi is always going to be home. I love going back to that and just putting that on in training and that. It's where I started. So, but definitely, I tell people training both. Training both. If this is a real world scenario, not everybody's gonna have a jacket on. So you need to understand what to do if it's a different scenario. So I tell people train in both. You're never gonna be a master in both of them, but train in both. It's gonna help you no matter what. I think my jujitsu might have gotten better because I started doing no gi. Because there is no grip. I don't have a gi, so I really have to understand wrestling, etc., moving around a lot different. So definitely I'm gonna go gi, but I do understand why she chose no gi.
well, I have an appreciation for wrestling. I understand that part because it is probably the most complete combat system of all the different combat systems that I've ever studied. So
Oh,
I get that part.
I wish now that I'm older, but they didn't have wrestling wasn't big time where I came from. I'm from New Orleans. Wrestling was not a, but I wish I would have started in wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
It would have helped me out so much. So I'm
Huge
with you.
advantage the wrestlers
Yeah.
have. It's
Oh my
insane.
god. You know the only thing I say, and I'll say this: when you see them starting gi, it's an issue for them at first. They're trying to understand it, but then all of a sudden, once they get it, oh my god, how fast
Yep. Once they
they
get to purple belt, you're
yeah,
done.
oh yeah, that's it. That's it. I can't tell you how many guys that I knew wrestled, they were in the gi, and all of a sudden they went to purple belt. I couldn't even handle them anymore at that. It was a wrap after that. So definitely understand.
Yeah, I try to stand up with the teenagers at my gym who wrestle in high school, and they just throw me. I'm like, I just got thrown by a 14-year-old chick and like in the air. And then I'm stubborn, so I keep standing up with them because I'm like, I want to get better. Right. And then sometimes I'm like, all right, I got thrown enough today and I just sit on my butt. But most of the time I really try, especially the ones that I trust, because you can get pretty hurt in wrestling too. Somebody throws you the wrong way or lands on your knee. And so the ones I trust, I try. But they throw the crap out of me, those teenagers.
So I'm going to switch topics here because you guys can go on for days. I can
We could.
tell. So, which is scarier for you, BJJ tournament readiness or Army physical readiness?
BJJ tournament readiness.
Why?
Yeah. It's way more of a mental battle, I think. So, and getting my body ready because you don't know what the hell they're going to throw at you, right? That opponent that comes in the ring or in the on the mat, I don't know what we're going to end up in, right? I have my game plan. And my last match, I started with my game plan, and then all of a sudden we are in positions I hadn't even planned for, and we went for 10 minutes, and we're just like transitioning like lunatics. And you have to be just ready to adapt. The military readiness stuff is like a certain set of things. The Army fitness test that we do is not difficult. Deadlift, sprint drag carry, there's a run, and like I don't have to train for that. I just go do it, and it's fun. But when you're getting ready for a tournament, You never know. And you never know how they're going to show up that day, right? Your mindset is so important. We're talking about Ronda Rousey and her 17-second submission yesterday or win yesterday, right? She came in probably with so much confidence. I mean, you could just see the exuding of like badassery that she had all week. And maybe that was part of the win too. So if you're coming in with all this confidence versus if you're doubting yourself, that could win your battle before you even get in out there. Whereas like the army fitness stuff is it's you against you. You kind of go out there and I know what to expect and I know that I can pass it because I'm active and I can I'm conditioned. So very different, very different.
Love that.
Okay. Of course, I'm gonna go back to jujitsu because we can talk about jujitsu all day. Heel hooks, illegal or legal? Should we ban them or should we keep heel hooks?
It's such a good question. Um, and I get torn between like the orthopedic surgeon in me, that shit is dangerous. Right, I tore my ACL, and the competitor in me is like that's part of the game, and they are fun as hell. I think the way I've been thinking about it a lot recently of when you're in competition and like refs calling things. I guess if you're at the top, right, ADCC, you're at these big time tournaments, probably not going to call it, right? There's a lot of money on the line. There's a lot of respect and prestige on the line. But in most tournaments, they should probably be called, right? You have a bite on it, you have the knee line, and the person can't heel slip. There's no need to rip that. So that's my opinion. I think people are very opinionated about this situation, but I think we could save so many more people's knees if in these specific most tournaments can probably be called versus ripping things, right? It's $1,000 on the line, you know, maybe things get a little bit more spicy if it's pro, but most of these things are not pro, right? And we have people out at local tournaments on weekends ripping heel hooks. Probably not the best, in my opinion. So I think it should be graded and level. That's how we do things in MMA a lot too. I do ringside coverage and I'll call things sooner on an amateur first time this guy's fighting versus a pro title fight. It's probably gonna be a little different.
I'm gonna agree with that.
Or not probably, it will be different.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've had conversation about heel hooks. I usually say if it's locked in, it's locked in. You trying to spin out of it is not gonna help that situation. I've even caught people and to say, "Do not spin. Please don't do that, especially if we're rolling. If it's in, it's in." Yeah, you got, somebody like my age, 46, and you tear that, now what happens? Now you're not going to work, now you gotta have surgery, it's a whole bunch of other stuff, so I
Well,
get
especially in the
certain
gym
tournament. Yeah, yeah,
when
in
you're
the
rolling
gym,
with your
yeah,
friends. Like I am a
yeah,
big proponent of catch and release.
yeah,
Because
just
in
catch.
competition, though, I've seen people roll and clear knee lines and get out of things that you're like, but you don't know what's going on with their knee afterwards, right? And maybe they're fine. Most of the time, they're probably fine.
Mhm.
But you have that one thing, and they're out for a year.
Yeah, I think for me training jujitsu at my age, I was like, "I gotta go to work tomorrow." Even if I did a tournament, I was like, "I gotta go to work tomorrow." So it's more for me, I was like, if it's locked in and I can't get, I'm probably gonna tap, call it a day. I always, I listen to my coach. My coach always say, "Don't get in that position."
That's easier said than done.
Yeah, that's what my coach, "Don't get in that position." That's what my coach tells me, so it's a lot different.
No, but heel hooks are so fun. The mind
Mhm.
game of leg lock and leg entanglements. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's
Oh,
so fun, and there's always something new. Like I love it. I just try to pick good partners, and I'm careful with it. But when you're in competition, from experience, from when it happened to me, your adrenaline's going. And I didn't even realize I was in a bad spot, right? So I just was like, I'm going to win. We're good. And pop. And so I think reviewing that now before I go into competition, I'm like, listen, talking to myself, if they catch a heel, you tap. They catch a heel and you can't slip your knee, you tap. Because that was that was a rough experience. It was great looking back though, because I'm a better ACL surgeon and I'm a better jiu-jitsu competitor and a better coach after that experience.
In Taekwondo, we're very heavy on the kicking part of it. So when it comes to competition time, we don't kick below the belt for a good reason. Because even though we train, under self-defense conditions, that it's okay to, hit body parts that you wouldn't normally in competition.
Hmm.
But it takes a great bit of restraint. And I hear what you say about, adrenaline rush. So let me ask you something about leadership. So, is there a one thing that you would, or one advice you'd give everyday leaders that they can take away from combat athletes?
I think a big thing is not reacting. When something happens, it's very easy to first thing that comes into your mind, just saying it. And a lot of times, I don't think that's what we mean. And I'm still working on this. It's something happens in life. I teach residents as well, for orthopedic surgery residents to teach them to be surgeons. And they'll say something or do something, and you want to just be like even something bad, like you're dumb. Why did you do that? That was ridiculous, right? And sometimes I will say that messing around, whatever, but most of the time that's not what you mean. Or somebody does something that you didn't like. Taking a minute, taking a deep breath, formulating a thought, and then responding instead of reacting. So not just the first thing that comes out of your mind, because you might regret that later. Thinking about it and coming up with a better way to explain or lead.
I like that answer a lot. I'm reminded of Viktor Frankl as you say that.
I don't know, but
So Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor, he wrote the book on, how do you avoid suffering? And effectively, one of the things he talks about is between your reaction and your response is the space where you can think. So that general paraphrasing is attributed to Viktor Frankl.
love that.
So, all right, Renard, you got one more?
No, no, I think we're good because if I talk about jujitsu again, we're gonna go another hour. So I'm gonna stop on questions from me.
It'll be a
Awesome.
2-hour podcast quick.
Yeah.
It would be. Well, I will tell you, as a non-Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, I learned a bunch of things. You guys are dangerous. I'll say that. I've said that in class before too. But hey, I'm gonna say Taekwondo is a very powerful sport too. So I don't want to, take that away. Even though when we get to the ground, we have some issues we got to overcome. So we try to stand up pretty quick. I'll leave it at that. So maybe we should add BJJ to our repertoire as Taekwondo practitioners.
You
I,
should. It
I
wouldn't hurt.
wouldn't knock it. You're gonna go to the ground at some point in a real life scenario. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
you
I
know,
totally get it. Well, I even remind my students that, when you're in the dojo, you've got no shoes on. But if you're outside on the street, fighting on the street with your tennies on is a little different. And there's a lot more friction than what you have on the floor mats.
That's right.
So those kicks, those spinning hook kicks, you want to try and avoid them because that'll tear your knees up pretty quick, especially on the road or the sidewalk where there's cement.
It
Anyhow,
probably hurts more to get hit with a kick too.
it it does. It does. Yeah, I can speak from experience for sure. So but Megan, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I know my good friend and co-host Renard is somebody who is a better BJJ practitioner than I am, and I would love to get on the mat with you someday, Renard. But I don't know if
okay.
I'm ready for that just yet.
Hey, I will say since I know you don't know jujitsu, I will go easy on you. The same thing like when Megan talks about like white belts, I'm the same way. Like I need you to get to a certain level, and I feel like you're calm, etc. Then I'm more than happy to roll with you. But if you're like brand new, you don't have any experience in anything, I'm gonna wait a little bit, see how you do, and then yeah, it's not worth it. It's not, I used to be a person who it didn't matter what level you had. If you just started, I would roll with you and actually got injured because it was somebody who didn't know control. I had my retina scratched by a white belt. I was like, so I'm pretty much. I'll wait till you get to a certain level. So it'll be easy. We'll go easy. I will teach, etc. You'll be good.
Listen, brother, as much as I appreciate you, I will say this. I need to get over past my hugging fear on the floor. I know you both know what I'm talking about. I'm not past that yet. The moment I get past that, then we can talk about me showing up at a dojo, either gi or no gi, whatever that means, right? So
It's close and personal.
it
Hmm.
You
is.
have people in your personal space, and you got to be okay with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah, that's a me
somebody
that's a me problem.
Once somebody sweats on you and it drops and it falls in your eye, you
You
really
get over it.
yeah, you get over it after that. It's pretty normal after that.
All right. Well, Dr. Megan, before we part ways, what is a website or where should we go find you so that we can learn more about Dr. Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram a lot, LinkedIn. My Instagram is Dr. Megan Jimenez, just DR, and then my full name. My website is meganjimenez.com or drjujitsu.com. And I have to spell it out. The full doctor, somebody already had the DR Jiu-Jitsu, so that's why I spell out doctor. Yeah, subscribe to my newsletter. Every Monday it goes out, and that's on LinkedIn as well.
Fantastic. Well, with that, um, I will say, listeners of Black Belts and Boardrooms, please make sure that you leave a comment for us on Apple Podcasts, like us. That's how other folks will be able to find us. We really appreciate all the folks who listen to us, our friends and family who also listen and support us. And with that, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Dr. Megan, thank you again as well for you and your time. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take care, guys.